Welcome back to the shop, everyone. Now, I know I said I was going to make a video about all the upcoming projects, some automotive in nature, but first, here's another one. Got a Festiva in the shop again today. And you may remember this one from the fuel pump relay and wiring video. Just a quick thing I did a while back. But you didn't really get to see the whole car. This is one of these fancy models of Festiva with power steering, hold on, an air conditioner, passenger side mirror, rear windshield wiper, defrost, the GL. Way out of my price range. Anyhow, the purpose of today's adventure, the water pump. And you see, we've already got some things out of the way here. Obviously, the hood. It takes 4 bolts and a little hose for the windshield washer. And the air filter box right there. We've got our donor pump here that the car owner is working on. And of course the upper timing belt cover, a piece of plastic there. Yours might be missing already. So the first thing, I guess then, after those other first things I mentioned, would be to get this fancy accessory belt out of the way, which is being tensioned by this little deal on the power steering pump there. So we'll just spray that and wait a bit. Come on. And I will also spray what appears to be the bolt that the whole thing is going to pivot on when we try to release the belt tension. That looks like a bolt goes all the way through it. Threads are over there, right against the exhaust manifold. I'll just loosen that slightly to make it easier to pivot. Get this thing out of the way. Okay, so I'll commence to loosening, or attempting to loosen the bolt that's clamping it all together on the tensioner side of things here. I'll just use the old wrench leverage trick to hit myself in the face. Hey! That sounded promising. It appears to be turning. Without breaking off. And for the pivot point, look, the same size bolt. What were they thinking? Looks like progress to me.
How the hell and where the fuck did this come from?
Cap gun?
I don't know. It's rusted.
I'd say.
No? Yeah, I'd say probably some kind of cap gun.
Alright, stage 1 weight reduction. Now, if this bolt will turn, now that's a ridiculous angle. If this bolt will turn, I wish I had my 15 degrees of wobble extension they used to have at the Kmart round here, but I think this might get it. If this will actually turn, it can now relieve the belt tension. There it goes. We're on our way. Wow, I can turn that by hand now. Good old Mazda 121. Okay, now just getting a little resistance from the power steering lines here, but they've got plenty of rubber to handle that. Got that plenty loose. And we'll work the belt off. Huzzah! Okay, now same routine on the alternator down here for the next belt. That's doing the tensioning, but it does not appear to have a separate bolt for applying tension, but just one that holds it in place here in the slot, and then one that it pivots on the other side. Okay, I'm going to say we might as well jack the car up at this point, because eventually we're going to have to get this tire off of here to see through here to work on the crank pulley and such. So jacking this up and getting that out of the way will also allow me to get to that lower alternator bolt more easily. I'm going to jack on the tie down / towing point here. As long as you apply the force straight up and down.
Another inch or so.
And a little higher to get the safety stand under there. Come on, man, this car's not that heavy. Oh, hey, that spot. Yeah, okay, that's even better.
If you're on the frame, if you got just a little bit more.
Reaching the end of the convenience jack.
Alright, go ahead and let it down.
And we've got the stand in place. Still there?
Yep.
Alright. Oh yeah, and fancy wheels. Interesting thing about these Festivas is they have lug bolts rather than nuts. Or at least that's interesting here in the States. Let me know what it is elsewhere. These things are 14mm, and for that, since I don't happen to have metric impact sockets at the moment, the 9/16 is quite close enough. Get the trusty Ryobi. Perfect. And then this bit. Okay, so of course the front wheel drive cars rarely want to come right off. So you gotta use this maneuver. There we go. So then we've got us a plastic dealie here. Looks like some 10mm bolts there. Get that one. And then that one. There's gotta be something up underneath-ish in the front. Oh, just a stupid plastic thingy. Alright. One of these silly push pin deals. I'm not even going to look at the head of it. Let's see. You can push that out by hand if you're lucky. Yeah, they put a Phillips head on it to confuse everyone. There it is. Off that comes. Now we have access to the slime. Okay, here we have a 14mm lower alternator bolt to loosen so that it may pivot and get the belt off. And I would like an extension handle. Maybe try my current favorite cheap 1/2-inch ratchet here. There it goes. And it looks like we've got a 12mm on the top. There that goes, no problem. And it should now be able to pivot the alternator, thereby loosening the belt. Off it comes. And then the water pump pulley, which will have 2 bolts and 1 broken one, mostly revealing the water pump. Okay, now we got lower timing cover in the way there. Means we'll want to get that crank pulley off. Here's another view on the engine that I've had sitting here for a million years waiting to go into our Festiva. With the lower timing cover, and there's the timing belt tensioner. And still not entirely sure if that crank pulley has to come out of the way. So we're going to start removing the bolts from the lower timing cover there and see what we got. There's the dipstick bracket out of the way. Try that one there. Just wrong. Need the 1-inch extension. 3/8 deep.
Nope.
Too long. Need a 1/4-inch deep socket here. Well, finally the big red box comes in handy. See, it's not my big red box blocking my desk here. Alright. Now that thing looks to be moving.
This one?
No, it's below that.
This one?
Yeah.
Isn't, right here.
Isn't it? Okay, yeah, in between that.
Alright, yeah, let me get
There
a
we are.
regular socket. I can get it.
Alright. No need for this bolt to be so long.
I know. All the other ones are, though. You might as well make them all.
Okay, now what do we got here? Wobble, 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 bend, weasel, something, something. Come on. Okay. Maybe. It's on its way. It's out.
Yay!
Huzzah! Now we gotta blow the crap out of that timing gear. But there it is. That's what it really looks like, if you're wondering. That'd be easy to read the timing on, eh? We'll shovel that off. These things frequently like to distort and be rubbed by the surrounding pulleys. It might be what some of this material here is. Okay, folks, looks like there's no way to weasel around this. The right thing to do here is to take this crank pulley off and set the timing on this thing and remove the timing belt. So here we go with the pulley. It should have 3 bolts and 1 broken one, and they're 10mm. It looks like we're gonna have to remove these bolts one at a time, rotating the engine to move each bolt down to the bottom for access. Okay, we've got her in neutral so we can rotate the engine. I'll try it by hand first. Going clockwise. That's fairly important. And if you had a strap wrench, you could use that. You there?
Yep.
Alright. Why don't I own a strap wrench? I suppose the belt would provide enough leverage. There's one bolt out. Let's test my theory here. Yeah, that's easy enough. There's all the bolts. And one pulley is coming off. And the other is loose as well. Might need a little pry.
Hold on a second. That's where
That's held by the screws.
that's held by the 2 Phillips.
Alright. Okay, those Phillips screws are not going back in. They're absolutely pointless. Just a slight installation aid for putting both pulleys on at the same time here in a ridiculously awkward position. Phillips screws never work. Let's use our favorite can of spray on that crap and go smoke 3 cigarettes. Alright, I've got my best screwdriver, you miserable piece of crap. How's it gonna be? I see. Impacting. Ah! Ryobi wins again. Throw this in the trash. Like putting Phillips screws on brake rotors. Ridiculous. Almost. There we are. Impacting. Alright. That was easier. Hadn't been pre-mangled. But it's still not going back. And off it wiggles. Okay, so now it'll be time to remove the timing belt. Get that out of the way. So before doing so, we'll need to get our engine to top dead center on the compression stroke on cylinder number 1, which would be explained in your manual you should be following. But basically, we'll use our 21mm wrench to rotate the crank clockwise, always clockwise again, by the crank sprocket bolt there, until we get a certain set of marks in alignment here. Something should be straight up and down on the cam sprocket, and usually the keyway there will be straight up and down on the crank sprocket. And well, if we take our distributor cap off here, as we will in a moment, the rotor will be pointed towards the cylinder number 1 spark plug wire. Alright, timing belt. S W. Alright. Right, let's try engine timing belt. That should at least direct us to it. For water pump, 3114. Alright, so we got this little mark straight up on the cam sprocket. This one, 90 degrees from it, lined up with the point right here. The keyway on the crank sprocket pointing straight up. And over here,
If I get this back off.
if we remove the distributor cap, we'll see their number 1 plug wire, which is this one, going to our number 1 or front cylinder.
Long screws. That one's loose.
The rotor is pointed right at it. So, I'll now make some additional reference marks going across the sprocket and belt in the same positions. A couple there. And one there. Let's see. Let's make another there. Why not? Alright, I'm going to suggest that we deviate from the book procedure and leave that belt in position as long as possible. We can remove all 4 water pump bolts and the 2 bolts holding a water pipe onto the pump there, thereby minimizing the amount of time that we have the timing belt off. And we've put it back in gear to help hold everything in position. So it looks like we've got some 12mm water pump bolts here. I think they are on that water outlet also. Oh, and we can of course drain the coolant. Okay. There's a drain plug on the old radiator. Let's see if it works. Hope you can see this at some point. Alright, I'm going to move off to the side now. See if I can pull that all the way out without dumping it all over myself. Gee, that's fun. There we go. Oh yes. Nice controlled stream there. Always gotta dump right on something else. Beautiful. Well thought out. Couldn't possibly afford a little tube there. Good thing I have an active drain pan. And there she is. Perfectly dry. As somebody turn off my camera. That is delicious though. And it looks like it's time to change the batteries in our studio lighting again. Moving the drain pan into place beneath the front of the engine. As the water pump comes loose, now it's time to try to get a wrench on those water connection 12mm looking guys. We have to take the dipstick out.
Maybe I should have done these first.
Might have been easier. I think we're going the wrong way too.
I am. I was just testing it.
Alright. I think we're gonna try to get this fancy accessory out of our way. Power steering. Who can't steer one of these? It's like 1,700 pounds. Except you just doubled its weight with these accessories. So, okay, go ahead. Go ahead and use your tools.
Thought you'd get them on.
But you made the same mistake I did. That's a 12.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense.
It's a deceptive one. Where's that short ratchet?
Yeah, that'd probably work a little better.
It's got smaller teeth, too.
Indeed it does.
Oh, yeah. As usual, this bolt is far too long. I don't have time for all these threads. Alright, now, freedom.
No.
Looks like something else might have to pivot or something. Hitting there. That will come up there. If we could get this to roll. How far is it? There we go. Twist. And now, oh, what a silly bracket.
Well, let's take that one off, I suppose. Just to get it out of the way.
Yeah, take it. Now that's a real 10mm. And there's an electrical connector here, I see.
That has been rubbed too.
Single pin, no big deal. And we fold our lazy steering pump neatly aside. Look at all the room.
Too much room.
Now that's cheating. This would be a lot easier if we got rid of that air conditioner. Okay, with those 6 bolts out of the water pump, I think we're going to have to remove this belt. So, tensioner's down here. This spring under this rubber sleeve, but hooked on here, is what tensions that. So it won't be terribly stiff, and I'll just use some sort of a lever to pry that, to loosen this, pry that over, and tighten it back down slightly out of the way. I'll loosen this 12 millimeter tensioner, just enough so that it can slide. See if I can move that by hand. Yes, it's not much tension at all on this model. Alright, get ratchet in position below me. And there's somebody to operate the ratchet below me. And shove and shove. Now tighten that down. There we go. Timing belt loose. Now, making sure everything's still in position. Marks are still there. We slip it straight forward. Trying to be very careful with it, as this one we're reusing because it's been replaced recently. Not by us, but people before us, who for some reason didn't feel it necessary to replace the water pump at the same time. And just slip that out of place and lay it down neatly out of the way in the same orientation. And then make sure for the rest of the operation not to jostle the camshaft or crankshaft. Let's see if that comes right out of there. Hey, it comes right out of there. Did they even use any sealant? Okay, now with all the gasket surfaces scraped neatly and wiped with a clean rag, we'll do a bit of everybody's favorite drug, the brake cleaner. Try not to do that. I'll wipe that bottom again so that it doesn't wind up oily. With my clean shop towel. Alright, we observe that that all dries neatly and proceed to a small bit of gasket sealant. I don't think there's any left in there. Well, I used more than half of it. It was a bargain. Applying a very thin layer of gasket sealant to all gasket surfaces. I don't want any to squish out, really. It can clog things. The gasket is supposed to do the job, and this is just to fill in imperfections left from scraping the old gasket or from just slightly imperfect machining in the first. And it helps hold everything in place, of course. As yours. Okay, and we've got a little more sealer on the water outlet bit than on the rest of it, because that is a bit less of a precision fit there, and the hole in this tube is much smaller than that right here, so there's no danger of obstructing. So now, without jostling anything and spilling this coolant down here onto the mating surface, I stick the water pump on the engine. And of course, without sliding it around a lot and disturbing the sealant. It's pretty easy to position on this engine. Alright, and then you have someone put a bolt in there. Well, that's much easier with someone standing there with a bolt. And torque to spec. Alright, now we can get this thing back on before we lose our marks. On your marks. Let's see here. Those guys there. I believe I'll go below and get a better view at that end. Okay, and it should be pulled completely tightly on the right side here as well. Kind of got to slide it on evenly all at once there, as there's not a lot of extra slack in this. Unless there's a bunch of extra slack up there somewhere.
Not that I'm seeing.
Yeah, boy. Take that off a little, put that on a little there. We're going. That's binding there. There we are. Lovely. I'll slide that the rest of the way on. A little bit at a time, evenly around the circle. So it's up against that little back washer thing on the crank sprocket and relatively down the middle here. And you can see where the whiteout stopped. There we go. Now, the proper tension for this is to simply release the tensioner. Let the spring do the tensioning. Releasing the tensioner, and it springs into place. And just give it a gentle wiggle there. See that all is well. And snug it back down. Now to reinstall all the silly little washers and whatnot. Hopefully in the same order that you remove them. But maybe, could we put the lower cover on first any more easily this time?
Possibly.
Oh, and somebody was supposed to clean those timing marks.
Oh yeah.
Where's that guy? Brush, brush. Okay, yes, we'll put the lower cover on before those pulleys this time. Slipping our first crank pulley back in position. And its washer. And if we didn't have these fancy accessories, we'd be done.
2 hours ago. Alright, so where are my mini?
But we have that other pulley without screwing this one down with stupid Phillips screws. The bolts go through everything. There are accessory pulley. And you install your 3 bolts in your 4 holes. And with all 3 of the 4 fasteners installed, we can put the top cover back in place. Alright, there's our water pump pulley back in place with 3 bolts. That ought to be pretty fancy. Now we can start putting belts back on. Well, we can put this belt back on anyway by tensioning it with the alternator. And in that case, you just use some sort of a lever on the alternator here to get the belt snug. Not extremely tight though. You don't want to overstress the bearings. Slip the little belt on there. It's a very common thing for these timing belt covers to rub on these pulleys and such. If it bothers you too much, get on eBay and try to find one that isn't distorted yet. A moderate lever, pry against something sturdy, and put a gentle amount of tension on there. Hard to describe that exactly. You'll get a feel for it. One thing you can do is measure belt deflection when you're done. I think that's about right. Tighten the lower alternator bolt. The lazy steering pump back into place. Let's take that dipstick out of the way. There we go.
Oh, wait a minute, we need to pick this up.
Yeah, right. Plug in that wire that we fixed up. Lovely. Install your long bolt that the whole deal pivots on.
Right in the way of the dipstick.
Seem to have the dipstick in a slightly different position this time. Let's take that bolt loose again and put the tensioning assembly back together. With the belt tension set, about like that. Tighten that 14mm. Put our stupid intake bracket back on. Why is it stupid? Because it got in my way that one time. Reinstall intake tubing. Reinstalling the intake box with the mass airflow sensor on top. Plugging in the mass airflow connector until it clicks into place. With both of the 3 bolts reinstalled, they connect the intake pipe. So that is that. Water pump and timing belt. Really a procedure that should be done all together about every 100,000 miles. And so we have only to refill this with coolant after allowing time for the sealant to cure. We're going to leave it overnight. Refill with coolant, start it up, check for leaks, put our lower plastic cover back on, put the hood back on, and that is that. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful or entertaining at all, don't forget to subscribe, click like if you like, dislike if you dislike, and of course if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below.